All right, hello future managers, welcome back to part 2. So in our first video, we started to talk about classical management, the history of management, some of the founders of management, Frederick Taylor, Henry Fayol, and Max Weber, and they were all about efficiency. Okay, how do we get the highest productivity possible to meet up with this massive demand as mass production takes off for the first time after the Industrial Revolution and as assembly lines take off. So, if you haven't had the opportunity to yet, I gave you guys a video that talked a little bit about Taylorism. I also gave you guys a video on Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne studies. So if you haven't yet, make sure you guys take time to watch those at least after this lecture. They're just kind of fun that you can see a little bit of actually what's going on in the actual factory and I'll get a little bit of context for you on these discussions. I would love to be able to go in depth with you guys and talk about this, but I'm trying to keep these videos short and sweet for you guys. And feel free when we go into our discussions, if you have questions for me about anything you see, hang in there. I do want to say we have a lot of theories to go through this week, but at the same point in time, there's just so much good stuff for you guys to know. And it really is going to help you guys to kind of put management in a context. So hang in there. Not every week is going to have as much content as this week. We're just trying to lay a good foundation for you guys. All right, so today we're going to talk about the behavioral management. So this is moving into, obviously, the 1920s, 1930s a little bit. So right now we are churning at high rate. We're churning out lots and lots of product. People are working 16-hour days. Remember, they're being treated like robots. And, you know, for them, it's considered to be an honor to be able to have a factory job, and they're not farming because they have that consistent paycheck, but they're working themselves. They have no time for a family, no time for a personal life, and there's just a lot of issues that are going on there. So the second area I want you guys to write is the behavioral management. This is the area of expertise, all right? So in this area of expertise, we're starting to recognize, hey, you know what? People are more than robots and machines. We're human beings, all right? And human beings know things and can bring value to the workforce. So the Hawthorne studies kind of started that out. I'll let you guys watch the video about that. But long story short, they went into Bell Electric, and Elton Mayo was a big fan of, let me skip forward to a slide or two here for you. There we go. That's Elton Mayo. I know you guys wanted to see a picture of him. But he went into Western Bell Electric, and he was trying to prove some other things based upon scientific management. So he was trying to say, hey, what if we adjusted the lighting for a worker? Would they work harder or faster then? What if we adjust the temperature? You know, would they work harder or faster if we were to tweak those little things? But what actually ended up happening was interesting. All right, he started to recognize that this control group, they had a big factory, I think 500 workers or so, but he had a little small control group of 30. You can see the picture of those ladies. But they started to, no matter whether you turn the lights up, turn the lights down, make it hotter, make it colder, they were producing way more than anybody else that was on the factory floor. And so he was trying to figure out, how do we motivate our workers, all right? These people were motivated. Why? Because we were asking them their opinion. For the very first time, workers had a voice. They were able to share things that they knew or things that they experienced, and because they were being consulted, they were working harder because they were actually, for the first time, a part of the organization. They were being viewed as not expendable, but as knowledge that was valuable to the organization. This was like a monumental, mind-blowing thing. So Elton Mayo really helped make the shift from efficiency to expertise. Now, I have to go back a little bit, because you guys saw at the very beginning up here, I started talking about Mary Parker Follett. We cannot forget about Mary Parker Follett. She was a lady before her time. We call her the prophet of management, okay? So this is Mary Parker Follett right here. Mary Parker Follett, that communities, that organizations are basically communities. So if you think about a small town, that's exactly what an organization should be. So if you think about a small town, you know how they all kind of get together when somebody wants to do a barn raising back in that day? She believed that everybody had their own little function in an organization, and they all needed to come together to really help the organization to succeed. She also thinks that the hierarchy, the pyramid that Weber was talking about, was dangerous because there was too much of a distance between the people running the organization and the people doing the work. So she said, listen, we're all just a community. We all need to run like a community. And then she also said that, we need to have respect for our workers, and we need to be able to let people know they're adults and trust them to be able to do their work, not time them for every moment or break everything they do down to a series of motions and efficiency and not give them time to go to the bathroom. They're adults. Let them function like that. And so she was all about making a community of cooperative action, basically saying, hey, we're a bunch of people getting together to do a job. Just saying like a community would all come out to do a barn raising. And so one thing that she suggested to help raise productivity, and then also to help to give employees the buy-in and show that they have the respect of the organization, is to make them all owners of the organization. If everyone has a piece in the success of the organization, they're going to be more responsible and care more about the organization having a positive outcome, right? Now, guys, this is the 1920s. This was like revolutionary. And plus, she was a woman, so she did not get the respect, her ideas did not get the respect that they should have. But you know what? She was the first person to say words like empowerment, employee involvement, being flexible on the job, managing yourself. We talked about it last week. And then also a concept we'll talk about, I think in week 11, transformational leadership. How do we actually get people to rise to the next level of leadership? She was the first person to bring that up, and guess what? Those are all things that are a part of the workplace today. So it's pretty exciting. So she was a prophet ahead of her time, and that's very much what's happening. When I think about her success, I think about companies like King Arthur Flour, for example. That company was struggling. It was not doing well. It was getting ready to go out of business. You know what they ended up doing? They ended up giving all the employees a piece of ownership of the company, and everybody got involved in the collective success of the organization, turned it around, very successful business today. I don't know if you guys know Chobani Yogurt. Any yogurt fans out there? Chobani did something very similar. They went around and they gave ownership stakes to some of the original employees of the organization. And so that gives the employees a vested interest in seeing the organization succeed. And so that's going to make you more productive. It's going to make you more motivated and excited to go to work. So that's Mary Parker Follett, revolutionary behind her time. Things that we do now that are commonplace, she was the very first person to come up with them back in the 1920s. Okay, so if you haven't yet, make sure you write behavioral on the board. Or in your notes. So you want to write Follett. She was all about communities of cooperative action, empowerment, sharing ownership of the company to motivate employees. And then you also want to talk about Mayo. And Mayo had the Hawthorne studies and started to recognize that when we ask people for their opinion, they're going to work harder. So let's move on to the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. The fields of psychology were exploding back then. Freud and some of his followers were starting to share some really big ideas about psychology. Sociology was growing large as well. And those ideas actually started to ebb into management a little bit. And so that's when we start to learn about, and you guys, if you've taken psychology already, you probably are already familiar with Maslow. Abraham Maslow, is he like a happy guy? I mean, he just looks like a happy individual, all right? But he came up with this hierarchy of human needs, okay? And this was really revolutionary also for management, because keep in mind, right now, we're still in an era very much pumping out efficiency, assembly lines, that whole culture really took over corporate America as big business really became to boom in the 30s and 40s. All right, so let's just go over this really quick for you guys. So at the very bottom level of his hierarchy of human needs is physiological levels. Like, what do we need to physically survive? We need air, we need water, we need food, we need shelter, okay? So, that was usually what most jobs would provide. But let's look at this again through the context of a manager. At the safety level, you have to think about it. You have to be able to, go to work without feeling endangered. Unions were starting to raise at the time. People would get beat if they did or didn't join a union. So there were safety issues about going on there with this whole big business thing as well. Also, people would work an entire week, and then come Friday, payday, the boss might say, oh, sorry, no pay today. And people would work and not get paid, so they'd lose that safety of a paycheck. They'd have to worry about maybe losing their home if they didn't get paid, even though they'd gone to work. So those were all valid concerns that were going on back then. So people we're living really at those bottom 2 layers of the organization. And Maslow was the one to say, we really got to aspire higher in the organization. He goes, people can't be working 16-hour days, 7 days a week. They need love and belonging. They need to have time for their families. They need to have time for their friends. They need to have time for a personal life. And that's where the concept of a weekend or a 40-hour work week began to take root because of this hierarchy of needs, recognizing that, human beings are complex, and if we're going to meet human needs, we have to give room for people to do more than be robots and work. Okay? And then he said esteem. When you go to work, do you feel good about yourself? Do you like your job? Do you like what you do? If so, you're probably going to feel pretty good about yourself. All right? And then I want you guys to make sure you draw the line there, kind of like as shown in the graphic right there for you guys. But basically, I want you guys to think about motivation in the job. So everything beneath the esteem line basically says, as your needs are met, your motivation is going to kind of decrease as your needs are met. Like, oh, I don't need to do as much. Those are considered to be deficiency needs. If something is missing, you're definitely going to not be motivated. All right? But at the very top, self-actualization, I want you guys to jot down a little note. This is learning and growth. Okay? Do you feel like you're more motivated because you're being invested in, you're learning and growing? And that's the hardest thing for an employer to be able to give an employee. And Maslow was the first one to say, hey, listen, not only people need to be respected on the job, but they need to be invested in so they can learn and grow. Kind of just like what Weber was talking about, you need to be able to move up the organization as you learn more. People have to be able to see some sort of progression in their career. They can't work the same job all their life. You know what I mean? People need to be able to learn and grow. So here's a quick insight about me. So I worked at GE, and I worked at GE for quite a while. And I'm always go, 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 go. And I would very quickly go in and master my role, my position, and I was always looking for more, trying to expand my role, trying to take on a new project. And my boss saw that I had this kind of hunger and need to grow, and so he was giving me new assignments and new jobs and sending me to trainings, and that was all great, being invested in that learning and growth. That was everything he could do. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll go get another master's degree, because I already had one. I was going to get a master's in supply chain to go with it, and then I actually ended up going back to get my doctorate. And my boss was like, you need that learning and growth, man. It's the best I can do for you. But here's the thing, guys. I think self-actualization is interesting. So for myself, I was working a lot for GE, and I was saving the company millions of dollars, and I was involved in big negotiations, and I was traveling around and managing the supply chain for the steam turbines and generators that go into power plants all around the world. And they were doing all this stuff for me, guys, but I couldn't help but think to myself, I don't think this is what God made me to do. And so I would encourage you guys, when you guys get to your careers, I want you guys to start thinking about, is this what God made me to do? Or is this going to take me on a path to what God has for me? I mean, God used my time at GE, and I'm very thankful for it. And I learned a ton there, and I'm very thankful. But it also helped pivot me to say, hey, I really feel like I need to be a professor and invest in the next generation, because we need ethical and competent business leaders in the next generation. And it's this concept of self-actualization that really helped to tweak me towards that. So anyhow, so if you have that self-actualization, that's when you're really going to be motivated to go above and beyond, if you feel like you're in that self-actualization step. So I'll keep going. All right, so a couple more theorists I want to share with you guys. I'll go through these kind of quick. So this is Douglas McGregor. Douglas McGregor, another cool guy. We're moving into the 1950s now, guys. We're really moving along. All right, so think about the 1950s. Douglas McGregor basically came up with theory X and theory Y. And this is when we're talking about how we are going to look at our employees. And there's two main managerial mindsets that were emerging at this point in time. There is theory X, and that's basically the old school classical style of management. All right? It was basically saying that people didn't really want to work. They were really only wanted their paycheck, so they didn't like work. They're going to be lazy or soldier, as Taylor would have said. They don't like responsibility, and if you're going to get them to perform, you got to coerce them. You got to pay them more money. So there's that old school style of thinking, theory X. All right? And that's basically saying you better keep an eye on them. You better micromanage them, because as soon as you look away, they're going to slack off. So you better stay on top of them. I've had those kinds of managers, guys. And you know what? There is a time and a place for that style of management, even in today's world. And I don't like to say that, but for example, we worked in a union shop at GE, and some of the union employees had that kind of mindset, just because they hadn't been invested in like an employees. They were like, oh, I did my 5 hours of work for the day, and now I'm going to sit around for the next 3 hours. We're like, you're here for 3 more hours. Can't you help us get more done? They're like, nope, I've met my quota. So that can kind of create that Theory X mindset in some of the managers that I had out on the floor. And so I had to constantly think to them about how to reassess that. But regardless, that's Theory X. Theory Y, other side of the house, is basically saying, hey, you know what? Employees really like work, all right? They're kind of creative. They want to be responsible. They want to have ownership over the tasks that they do every day. They want to see how what they do every day comes together to help the organization be successful. All right, and you know what? You don't need to micromanage them. If they know what they need to do, you can trust them to get the job done. That's a Theory Y manager. So you're seeing that kind of divide between the classical and the behavioral school mindsets in McGregor's work. Theory X and Theory Y. And then last, I have to spell Chris Agiris. And guys, you're going to love his picture. He's just the cutest old man, isn't he? Look at those big glasses. All right, so Chris Argyris is the last behavioral management guy I'll share with you. Here's what I want you guys to keep in mind from Chris Argyris. He's basically saying, kind of continues on that Theory Y concept that McGregor came up with. And he said, listen, Mary Parker Follett said this too, and it's all part of the behavioral school. It kind of built off of each other. He said, listen, if we treat workers like they're mature adults, they're going to be more productive, And mature adults don't just do one job their entire life. They need to be able to do multiple jobs. As human beings, we all do kinds of things, Maybe we might clean, we might cook, we might drive a car. We all do all kinds of things as human beings, because that's things that adults do. We go grocery shopping, so why do we have one person doing the same task day in and day out all their life? We need to be cross-training them to do multiple things. That's how human beings are going to learn and grow and continue to move the chain if they can figure out how all the different functions in the organization work together. And so that really became the basis for work flexibility and this whole concept of cross-training that's become very popular. And then for the very first time, he brought up this concept called job satisfaction. Whoa. Job satisfaction, so we're starting to design jobs so that the workers will be satisfied. It's not so much about taking care of the workers or using them like machines for the first time. It's designing work so that the work people will want to stay and be productive and be satisfied on the job, because we recognize that there's a tie between productivity and satisfaction. And what does it come down to? Treating people like mature adults, okay? So, just to kind of sum this up real quick, behavioral management summary, put it all together for you guys. Make sure you guys write the rest of these guys in the bar. We had Follett, we had Mayo. Who else did we have? Look back through your notes. We had Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. Who else did we have? McGregor. And he was about Theory X and Theory Y. You guys probably can't even see this. I have horrible handwriting, so don't try to read from the board, just humor me that it's there. And then the last is Chris Argyris. He said if we treat them like responsible adults, they will be more productive. So those are your main behavioral management theorists. Again, this concept of basically saying we're social. We have something, expertise to add to the organization. We are not just arms and limbs and robots. We're trying to have a job that's satisfying. And basically, if we're going to be productive and have positive business results, we have to treat people well. So that's behavior management in a nutshell, guys. Go ahead and check out our last one where we'll learn about modern management.